Hello, everyone. Welcome to this lecture on morphology. Okay, so what is morphology? Morphology is the scientific study about the structure of words or word formation. Because in linguistics, it's a branch of linguistics. It can be considered as a subsystem of linguistics because when linguistics studies the language, it is a scientific study of language. Morphology is the focus of when we study words, because we have different levels when we do the linguistic analysis, starting with phonetics and phonology, where we focus on the sound, and the next level would be morphology. So morphology is a level, or it is a branch of linguistics where we focus on the word formation or the structure of words. So let's see what we are going to cover in this lecture. So here, today's lecture, we are going to focus on these topics. What is a morpheme? Okay, and what are allomorphs? Then about the classification of morphemes. So first we will look into what is morphology and what are morphemes. So morphology is a study of structure of the words and word formation. It is a study of systematic formation of meaningful words. Morphemes are the smallest meaningful unit in the grammar of a language that cannot be divided further. So when it needs to be explained, because when we talk about morphology, we have to briefly mention about phonology and phonetics as well. So phonetics and phonology, the basic difference would be phonetics would be the study which can be considered as universally accepted, or universally we can apply that, because phonetics, we are focusing on the different sounds, the symbols. We are all familiar with the monophthongs, diphthongs, and consonants, the 44 phonemes that we have in language, and that can be applied to each and every language out there. But when it comes to phonology, where it will be bit more focused, because that will be the branch, or that will be the subsystem where we focus on the particular language. Okay, so phonetics will be general, it will be universal. We'll be applying the 44 phonemes that are like that can be accepted or applied in each and every language out there. And phonology will be the focus point, because we'll be focusing on a particular language. And for phonetics and phonology, we are actually focusing on the sounds, because that is a very basic thing, right? And what are these sounds known? These sounds are called as phonemes, because phonemes are the basic unit in a language, and we can exactly define morphemes in relation to phonemes, because when phonemes are the smallest unit or the foundational unit in a language, morphemes are the smallest meaningful units in the grammar of a language. Because when we talk about morphemes, we have, like as you can see on the screen, the examples that I've given for morphemes, that would be the prefixes, the suffixes, and also the very basic meaningful words. So it can be a word, it can be a word which cannot be we cannot break it further. So that can be a morpheme. At the same time, the prefixes and little suffixes that we add to kind of like to make it to expand the meaning, or to kind of create the opposite of the meaning, so that can also be a morpheme. So that's why we're saying it is the smallest meaningful unit in the grammar of a language that cannot be divided further. And whatever that we are doing here, because we are actually focusing, we are analyzing the structure of words, how it is being formed, because from the phonemes, we are actually putting it together to form the morphemes, and morphemes will create the word. Morphemes are words to a certain extent. And morphology is the study of the structure of the words and word formation. And it is the American linguist Leonard Bloomfield who initiated the study of morphemes in linguistics. So we can clearly mention this person's name, Leonard Bloomfield, as the person who initiated the study of morphemes in linguistics. And coming to the classification of morphemes, morphemes can be classified on the criteria of form, function, and format. So based on these three criteria, we can actually divide morpheme into free and bound morpheme. That is the first classification where we are talking about free and bound. From the name itself, it's pretty much clear. We are talking about free morpheme, then definitely it will be free, right? So free morphemes are morphemes that can stand alone, while bound morphemes can create meaning only when it is added to free morpheme. So bound morpheme, the examples would be the prefixes and suffixes, because if it is standing alone, it won't make any sense. And when it is added to the free morpheme that we have, then definitely it will create meaning. So those are free and bound morphemes. And the second criteria, again, it's the same thing, root and affixes, because whatever free morpheme is exactly root here, because root, it will be the nucleus or the core of a word. Affixes, as we all know, affixes can be prefixes or suffixes which will be added to the root to create meaning. And then based on the function, we can divide morphemes as lexical and grammatical morphemes, because lexical means lexicon, means word or content. It will definitely, it will have meaning. So when we talk about parts of speech, whatever content words that we have out there, like nouns, verbs, adverbs, adjectives, all those are lexical morphemes. And the grammatical morphemes would be the grammatical aspects, the parts of speech like conjunctions, prepositions, all those would be grammatical morphemes, because that alone cannot make any sense, you know. Like suffixes and prefixes or like bound morphemes, it's exactly the same. Grammatical morphemes cannot stand alone. It can stand alone, but it won't make much sense to the reader, because if we are adding that to the lexical part, because in a sentence, if you're only having content words, we can somehow figure out a meaning to a greater extent. But if it is filled with all the grammatical parts, only the preposition, only the conjunction is available, then that won't make sense. But when the grammatical morpheme is added, is attached to the lexical morpheme, then definitely it will create meaning. So this is the classification of morpheme. Based on form, function, and format, we can actually divide morphemes into free and bound morpheme, root and affixes, lexical and grammatical morpheme. So that is a little bit basic details about the field of morphology. Thank you for listening.